Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I am joined today by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
As always. And myself, Brian Black. Today, we are going to talk about body armor. So, I just got done doing that Memorial Day Murph workout at a CrossFit gym here locally, and I was wearing body armor because that's kind of the workout deal is you wear body armor while you're doing the reps. So, it's run a mile, 100 pull-ups, 100 or 200 push-ups, and 300 squats, and then run another mile, and that's all in body armor. So, I got to appreciate my body armor again. So those are kind of the times that I'm, I guess using it super actively, and I would say that's more actively than going to the range and putting it on. That's really kind of. And it's a great thing to do, honestly. I mean, it's great to have that ability to run in your body armor and really get a feel for what it's like. And I had to make some adjustments. So I wore this. LBT plate carrier while I was doing it. It's a 6094. It's the slick one they made in mass gray, and that's what I wore. So I had a front plate, a back plate, and then I had some soft armor inserts in there as well behind the plates. So soft armor inserts are a way of kind of padding the plate behind it, as well as offering kind of more protection if, something happens and the plate cracks or something like that. Sure. Because there's different types of plates. There's all steel plates, there's ceramic plates, and then, when you talk about soft armor, there's different kinds of soft armor in terms of material and all kinds of ratings. So that's kind of what I wanted to address more with this is what's out there, what's right for you, and kind of some options. So the short answer is whatever you choose is right for you. Yeah. I mean, honestly.
As long as you do your research.
And that's what I would encourage people to do is just know what you're getting. First of all, don't buy body armor off eBay. So that's like number one, especially ceramic.
We shouldn't have to say this.
Yeah, I know, but we do. Especially ceramic plates, because you don't know if there's hairline cracks in the ceramic, and if you really do get into a situation where your body armor gets hit, you don't know whether those small little cracks are going to actually go all the way through. Yeah. Right? So there is an issue with that. And kind of the most popular plates that are out there are sappy plates, and that's what these are. They usually say a size on them and say strike phase, handle with care, and that's kind of the most generic plate that's out there. And they actually have kind of a cushion layer behind the ceramic already.
And a little bit of curvature.
Right. So you don't necessarily need to wear soft armor with them, but most people do just because...
Peace of mind.
Yeah, it's kind of peace of mind. It offers a little more protection. Plus, it offers a little more, I guess, padding, if you will. I mean, these are already padded, but soft armor is soft armor is woven, so it's a woven, either laminate or aramid or something like that.
So it's fabric-like, but
correct.
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
fabric.
and it's stacked, so it's multiple layers of that fabric that are stacked together or laminated, and that's what kind of gives it its resistance to a bullet. Yeah. So. That's kind of where we should start with this is, I guess, briefly discussing types and then the ratings that are out there. So when you're talking about ratings, everyone kind of quotes the NIJ or the National Institute of Justice rating system because
that's a super cool name.
Yeah. That's where the ratings for body armor come from. So you've got everything from like a 2A up to a 4. And you've got 2A, you've got 2, you got 3A, you've got 3, and then 4 is kind of where the rating system goes up to. And 4 is kind of like your de facto, I guess, layer that's going to protect up to a 30 cal armor-piercing rounds.
Usually
supposedly.
Like hard armor.
Yeah. And then they do have a pretty extensive testing protocol with this, but there was an issue, back when I first started the site, we wrote an article that quoted some stuff by Dr. Gary Roberts, who is really into body armor. So he's just he's kind of become an expert in his field. I say kind of become. He is an expert in his field because of the extensive research he's done on body armor, not only just kind of personally, but he has worked with the government to do body armor studies and things like that too. That's not his forte. He didn't become a doctor to do that, but that's something he's really passionate about.
Kind of fell into it.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I wrote an article back in 2009 kind of addressing that because the NIJ protocol wasn't taking into account contact shots. So meaning if I walked up to you with a pistol and I put that right on your body armor and I shot you, he basically discovered an issue or a problem with the NIJ certification because it wasn't taking into account contact shots.
Oof.
So particular fabrics, particularly soft armor, we're talking about soft armor, what was happening is that it was not only not stopping the shot, but it was leaving a very large melting hole within the armor.
wound.
So even if it did stop the bullet, the melting that would occur with those fabrics at a contact distance obviously decreases the
Sure.
the what do you call it? The
Efficacy.
yes, thank you. Efficacy of the body armor. So there was a problem with that. So those particular products that were having issues were polyethylene laminates. So those were Spectra, Dyneema, a product called Xylon, which is no longer around, and then Goldflex. I don't know how many of those still exist today and what, if they're using those for body armor, but Dr. Roberts was touting the FBI testing protocol because the FBI came out with their own testing procedure kind of counter to the NIJ. Since I think that they have kind of seen the light at the NIJ and they've adopted some of those. Like we were doing some research before this episode and we saw that the NIJ now links to the FBI.
Yeah, when
body
you
armor
search that, that's
protocol.
what comes up. We can put that PDF in there too. It's like a 100-page thing.
And I'll link to the Gary Roberts article
Yeah.
too because it's pretty fascinating information to read what he discovered about
Yeah.
those contact shots. But that's kind of just a general statement I wanted to make about soft armor is that there was an issue at a time, back in 2009 or so. Actually, is even earlier than that, probably 2007, 2008, when that was discovered that, some of the laminate polyethylene stuff that was on the market wasn't stopping contact shots. So I think that's been addressed nowadays, and you can just do your research before you buy body armor. And that's one of the reasons we mentioned that in the beginning. Do your research. You really want to know what you're getting into when it comes to this.
And like you said, be super careful with used equipment. Like even soft armor, you just don't know how it was treated.
Correct.
And so I was going to say the soft armor is most predominantly found in what people would call like a bulletproof vest.
Correct.
And like that's that like wrap around. A lot of police officers will use that, but I've seen a lot of vests nowadays that come with a pocket on the soft armor to put a harder plate in for more vital areas and stuff. So it's good to see they're making like leaps and bounds in that.
Yeah, there's little chicken plates that you can now put, kind of in a pocket on soft armor that'll at least protect more of like your heart, lung area. It doesn't cover the whole thing like a normal SAPI plate would, because the way that body armor was designed, whether it's a soft armor or a hard armor, it's designed to cover vital organs. So you're supposed to wear body armor as high as you can because the way that it's contoured, and you can see most plates kind of have 45-degree angles across the top, unless you're talking about like a swimmer cut plate, which we can talk about in a minute. But so that shape is and it's usually contoured. It's got a curve to it. And that contours on your chest, and it protects your heart and kind of the lung area. It's not to say you wouldn't take a lung shot, if you had a plate on, but you're less likely to have a life-threatening bullet.
It's a game of averages.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're probably not going to get shot in that specific area, but this is covering the most it can. Because ideally we would just armor everything, but then we couldn't walk.
Correct. You look like Ralphie not Ralphie, Randy from
They got those
Christmas Story.
Like the big SWAT turtle suits that some of those guys wear. That's the
bomb
the
suit.
ultimate in protection, but
Correct.
You can't really move in that. So it's always kind of a trade-off.
Yeah, it's very much a trade-off. And even when you're talking about just moving in body armor, which I alluded to in the beginning of the podcast. When you have to run in plates, it can get very uncomfortable if you don't, especially, that's a great way of shaking out whether your plate carrier really fits you.
Yeah.
Because if it's not adjusted correctly, first of all, you're going to wind up with plates slapping you in the chin while you're running, which is never a good thing. Or you'll have so much separation on your chest if the cummerbund on it is not tight enough that it will just become incredibly annoying, and it's
painful.
So what you want in a plate carrier is something that will allow a proper shoulder adjustment to get it up high, because you want it high. But you also don't want to get it to where when you look down, your chin is
popping you in the chin,
hitting your body armor, right? Or when you get into a vehicle, the body armor slams up into your chin and you can't breathe because it's choking you out. You don't want that for sure. So there's a lot of adjustment that's necessary, and the best way to do that is just to shake it out. I mean, that goes with any gear. You always want to dirt dive it first and know what you're getting into. So,
absolutely.
That's kind of the deal with that. But, back to the kind of the certification, the things you can look for, most typically what you'll find with soft armor is level 3A. That's the most common level that you will see out there in terms of body armor, and that's more commonly, like you said, Rob, with bulletproof vests, like the officers wear. They're typically a 3A rating, and what that means is that it can stop up to a 44 Magnum bullet.
So basically handguns.
Right. And we're not talking about rifle caliber stuff. We're talking about handgun stuff. So that's the danger of just relying on soft armor, is that it can't stop a rifle round. So that's when you step up to something like a SAPI plate or a ceramic or a steel plate. That's kind of the deal, is you want that extra level of protection where you're going to have to step up to something heavier too. Yeah. Because, soft armor is relatively light, but when you're talking about a plate, that's when you start adding the pounds in. So just to give you an idea, with the plate carrier, the carrier itself, and my 2 SAPI plates and the 2 soft armor backers that I was wearing, it was just a little tad under 12 pounds. So, which is not bad. That's still fairly light.
Yes, especially for when you compare it to steel plates or something like that. That's something else I've noticed is if you look at costs, you'll see plates that are, I guess what you'd call cheap, and then some that are super expensive. And when you compare it, it always comes down to weight. Yeah. Even if they're the same rating. So if they're both level 4, one weighs 5 pounds and the other weighs 8.8 to 9. And I know there are a lot of people that think, 9 pounds isn't that big of a deal, but you get 2 9-pound plates, now you're at 18. And like you just said, run a mile, do a bunch of pull-ups and push-ups, and then run another mile.
Right.
And tell me that that's not going to be too heavy.
Well, and so typically to get protection up to a 7.62 round, you're dealing with something that's going to be on the heavy scale of a plate. So you can buy steel plates. So what's happened is in the evolution of body armor, I guess SAPI was kind of one of the first things to come out in terms of kind of an all-in-one solution for a hard armor plate. And then it progressed to manufacturers trying to save weight and going to all steel rather than a ceramic plate because of the damage that ceramic can take if you mishandle it and throw it around. So you always want to be careful with body armor. But the steel plates, the thing you run into with all steel is that while they are heavy duty, they're also going to spall. So if you've ever shot a steel target at the range, like a steel IPSC target, and you go up to look at the target afterwards, and you see almost like a visible line that's on the ground right under that steel, because those bullets, when they hit the steel, they're spalling. They're breaking apart.
They're going somewhere.
They're not being absorbed by the steel. Yeah. They're going up and left and right and down. Yep. More than likely down because of the angle of the steel. Yeah. Because if you look at a steel IPSC target, typically it's slanted at we call it 15, 20 degree angle or something like that towards the ground. So meaning your bullets are impacting and getting driven down into the ground. However, when you're wearing a plate, depending on the angle that you are facing the threat at, which hopefully is always going to be straight on, that's kind of going to be an issue too. Because if you're leaning back, guess what? That spall is now going to come up in your face.
Well,
if you're leaning down, it's
elevated
going to go in your
or
feet.
below you, or now you're playing the game of angles, like you said. And if you've ever had a steel plate that wasn't aimed properly, you get hit in the knees and stuff sometimes with spall. So
something that can be done with that is, I know a lot of companies now have come out with different coatings, like Line-X or Rhino lining them. Sometimes can stop spall, but that's kind of something to be concerned about when you're choosing an all-steel plate versus a ceramic plate.
Sure.
Because and the other thing I've seen is guys putting soft armor inserts in front of the plate, but that's kind of
that's interesting.
There's kind of a danger with that too, because if a rifle round goes through the soft armor and hits the plate, there's still going to be some kind of spalling, and it might not catch it. You know what I mean? So like if you get separation between that soft armor and that plate, there's still a chance that spalling could still be directed up into your face or your feet or what have you, or your legs, depending on if you're sitting or what.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the deal with that. It's just something to be aware of.
Yep.
Just do your research, read some articles on that kind of stuff before you purchase body armor from hopefully a reputable manufacturer. Like I said, avoid the secondhand market when it comes to buying those kind of things.
There's probably a reason why it's cheap.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, honestly, I think that there's nothing wrong with having, a plate carrier by your bed if something happens in the middle of the night to throw it on.
Sure.
And that's probably the most typical place that you would encounter that as a civilian is, having that in case of a threat.
Yeah.
More than likely, if something goes down in public, you're not going to run back to your car and grab your body armor before you get in a firefight. Most of the time, it's going to be hopefully protecting your loved ones and getting them out of harm's way.
Yeah.
If not, just coming to the scene and trying to neutralize the threat.
Sure.
So
I think it's important to be realistic about why you need it or why you're purchasing it, because I think a lot of people feel like they're going to throw it on and go miles and miles with it, and it's like that really sucks.
Well, and that's the other thing is that, kind of learning, learning what your abilities are in body armor is important. So, strapping it on and doing a run is, there's nothing wrong with that. You should definitely try to do that and understand your limitations with it and what it really feels like to wear it over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So that's a great way of finding out whether you have a good plate carrier or not. So.
Yeah. Something I've seen done too is Team Wendy makes some training plates.
Yeah.
They're made out of like a polyurethane or something, and they're great for like when you're doing workouts and stuff. If you want to wear a weighted vest, but you maybe don't want to risk ceramic armor getting cracked or something like that, because like you said, if you trip and fall and hit on the ground, the plates need to be X-rayed at that point because you don't know if they've had a hairline crack or whatever.
Yeah, and that was the danger of wearing these plates while I was working out. Like, luckily, I didn't fall on my ass or anything while I was working out, but I was also very careful, while I was working out. So,
and it's good because you get realistic weight behind it. Because those Team Wendy plates, I think, are a little lighter than a lot of like steel plates and stuff like that. But
no, training plates are a great option. I'm glad you brought it up because that's really what I should have been wearing during that. But I don't know. I kind of like to train as I fight.
No, and it'll be the real weight. And the one thing is, don't forget to swap your training plates out.
Yes. Yeah. Don't get into a firefight with training plates.
Yeah. Well, and so that's another good point of like, I think there are a lot of people out there that think with hard armor even that if you were to get shot, it's just kind of brush it off. But, there's still that inertial force of the bullet hitting you. So you're still not going to feel great.
Yeah.
And it's not going to just deflect stuff, especially with soft armor. It just catches it. Doesn't really stop that force from being put into your chest.
Well, the energy is still going somewhere.
Yeah.
So bullets have a lot of energy depending on how close they're shot and all that kind of stuff. To go back to that too, I did want to mention, even though that initial study was a long time ago, and I'm not sure what's kind of worked itself out in the meantime, all this has kind of led me back to that article that I remember Dr. Roberts writing, and I want to get some updated info. So that's coming. Just for my own personal edification, I want to know kind of what's been done with that NIJ-FBI relationship. But one thing too is that aramids that he found were stopping contact shots. So aramids like Kevlar were doing their job.
Okay.
So I didn't want to just leave it with saying these are the things that don't work.
Yeah.
Nomex is also aramid, but typically that's not something that's made into a soft armor.
Yeah, it seems like a chemical fabric, synthetic type.
It's made
thing.
with gloves, so like Nomex is huge because it's a no melt, no drip fabric. So it's used a lot in aviation for flight gloves and flight suits and things like that because the danger of being exposed to a fire and
having your stuff melt to you.
Right,
that's not fun
on the flight deck or even in an airplane. So, but like even in that Roberts study, he was citing that even if it took 8 or 9 shots to eventually work their way through the Kevlar, there wasn't that kind of melting that was occurring with Kevlar like it was with some of those other polyethylenes, laminates that I mentioned earlier.
Gotcha.
So I did want to add that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is that typically you always, a lot of shooting courses teach the fundamentals of always facing the threat head on, and a lot of that is because of the fact that you're now putting that entire plate or body armor towards the threat. And that's really something that kind of ties back into the body armor aspect that people may or may not understand, but there's a reason you always face the target head on, and that's one of the reasons is because you want those shots to come at you, not at an angle and get creep under your body armor, which has happened plenty of times. I know a guy that I went to buds with actually died in a shoot house during training because a round had come through the wall and caught him behind the body armor. So came from the side. It was a ricochet, and it came from the side and entered behind his arm. And he's wearing armor, but because of the direction, which obviously he didn't expect it to come through.
Sure.
But yeah, that was tragic when that happened.
Absolutely. Ballistics is definitely a tough science because bullets don't ever just travel in a straight line. They'll move, they'll bounce, they'll do all sorts of stuff. So
look
it's
at
tough.
the JFK magic bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's stuff like
whether
that.
you believe that or not.
Yeah, they've got reports from doctors that have seen people take a rifle round to the face and live, and then a rifle round to the arm and die. It's all kind of the law of averages, like we said. So this is just kind of one more layer in the protection. Obviously, not getting shot in the first place would be the best thing.
Yeah, and there's different types of body armor, which is something I'd like to address next. Is that even with soft armor, there's different cuts. There's like a spear cut. There's just a standard. What do they call this cut? Glossy. Yeah, this is just called their VS13.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the low profile is what they call that, or I forget how they. But it's way more coverage.
Yeah, there's very different cuts when it comes to soft armor too. So you can get actual, plate backers that are cut around the same size as the plate. So it's got those little 45 angles on it, and they're made to wear behind plates. And then you can also get side armor too. So even soft and hard plates are made with a size to wrap on the side too. So even when you're when you're shooting, your arms are typically outstretched, and it leaves kind of a very big vital organ exposed on your side. So side plates are something that you can look at too, or side armor. But the good thing about the typical body armor shape is that it has wings on it that wrap around your side. So that's kind of already covered in a sense on things like that. This is more like on plate carriers that don't necessarily have that where you're wearing plates in the backer. You would have to additionally wear something on the side to get that same type of protection on the wraparound.
Sure.
So some plate carriers are made with those side pockets to put side armor in. So that's something you can look for too if you're interested in that. But I would highly recommend Velocity Systems as a source of body armor. They do fantastic stuff over there, and I've always been a huge fan of what they've done. So that's my recommendation.
Same thing with carriers too.
Yeah,
like their
carriers are great too.
Plate carriers, all the vests and stuff they have are great.
Yeah, and now that they've integrated with Mayflower, I really like. They just have a lot of great options for that. And then typically, you want something that is going to. More modernly, what's come around is not only just a plate carrier, but the addition to dock in a chest rig on a plate carrier. So you have kind of the best of both worlds. Because when we've addressed this before, what happens is you've got a plate carrier that has your plates, and if that is also your chest rig, so meaning if that has pockets on it, you're okay. And sometimes even those plate carriers can have the side pockets for side armor.
Sure.
But if you get into something that's a lighter weight option, you might not have the ability to kind of you'd have to wear a chest rig over that. So now you've got the shoulder straps from the plate carrier, then you've got the shoulder straps from the chest rig, and then you got shoulder straps from a backpack. So
Strap City.
You're all strapped up. The way to get rid of that is to look for something like that. I don't know if they call it their Swift Clip system.
I think it is Swift Clips. Yeah.
But basically you can dock in with, two I call them Fastex buckles still, but you can basically dock in with those chasm buckles is really what, they're kind of surface mount female buckles that dock in with the male side on the chest rig. So that's an option too. But just do your research, look at a lot of what's out there, and just be careful before you decide on what kind of armor to buy.
Yeah, it's not a purchase to take lightly.
Right. Yeah, and you might have to also, provide information to be able to purchase it, depending on where you're purchasing it from.
Sure.
It's definitely not illegal to own body armor. There are some situations in ordinances you really need to look out for, though. So just do your research on the legal side too. Don't take this podcast as legal advice to go out and buy body armor.
Despite what you might think, we're not actually lawyers.
Yes. But yeah, leave us any comments too if you have questions about body armor that we didn't cover, or you have comments on what we did cover. Check out itstactical.com. There will be a site article on the podcast. You can leave comments there.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. All right, thanks for listening to Gear Tasting Radio. Remember, if you have questions, use the # Gear Tasting Radio on any social media network, and we will find them and get them answered. We promise eventually. I promise. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and while you're there, we would very much appreciate a 5-star review if you think we're worth it.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
I mean, 5 even if you don't. That's fine.
But that allows our podcast to get shown around to other places, and Apple will promote it based on our feedback rating. So we'd love to hear what you say in the comments too. We got some pretty interesting, funny comments going. So very, very much appreciate those and keep them up. Last but not least, check out our membership. We've got details in the episode intel on our membership. You can join as a crew leader. And we've got some great options for you to save some moolah and get some discount codes at participating vendors. Lots of benefits for your participation and membership. So thank you very much for that. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.